We decided on doing something a little different this year. Most years, this session or this time slot is reserved for a very experienced and seasoned farmer, a cooperator who's done a lot of research over the years. We wanted to kind of twist that a little this year and allow some of our newer members who have been starting to come to this Cooperators meeting and started to conduct research to give us their take on the program and why they value what we've been doing for so long, and why they value the Cooperators program and how it's going to help them in the future on their farm. So I've asked Carmen Black and Nathan Anderson to speak, and Carmen's going to start things off for us.
Okay, hello. My name is Carmen Black, and I I raise vegetables and sheep near Solon, and I want to thank all of you for being here and for your leadership. I really enjoyed kind of talking about the value of on-farm research with Nathan to get ready for this, and it's been really exciting to learn from all of you in this room. I farm near Solon, and this was my first year on my own. I took over Susan Utz's farm, who's in the picture with me, who many of you might know, and she retired, and so I worked for her for about 3 years, and then we had 2 years of transition period. So this was like my first solo farming year, which has been exciting. Those are some goats. I raise about 3 to 4 acres of vegetables, which I market almost entirely through community-supported agriculture. So people sign up at the beginning of a season and then pick up vegetables once a week. So I have people, this is a picture of one of my pickup locations where I don't pack the boxes. People go through and talk to me about how they like to cook zucchini and that kind of thing. And so that means that one of my challenges is to grow like a wide variety of vegetables for a long season. So I start in mid-April, and I just finished delivering the week of Thanksgiving. So it's a long season, and those are some examples of shares this year. And so that means that I have a lot of like different sort of environments and systems on the farm to make that as efficient as possible. And that's one of the reasons why I think that on-farm research is so valuable, to figure out how to make all of those things more efficient as we're trying to do just a lot of things. Because I start so early and go late in the year, high tunnels are really important. I have 3 high tunnels. One I use for starting all my own transplants, and then I do a lot of greens in the spring and the fall. And I use plastic mulch for like the warm season crops, like tomatoes and cucumbers and that kind of thing. And then I also just have long rows and use a cultivator. So there's like a lot of different sort of systems happening on the farm, which are interesting. I also have sheep. I've got about 30 sheep, and I'm interested in figuring out ways to more integrate them with the vegetables. So this is yesterday. They're cleaning up my kale, and they're really happy about it. So that's great also because it's important to clear that debris out when you have disease and stuff, so the sheep do a great job. I was first sort of learned about and inspired to do on-farm research actually by Susan's daughter, Frances. We were in 4-H together, and she did a lot of PFI research as a high schooler into alternative parasite control in goats. And so I remember she would give, every educational presentation she gave was about it, and and I actually thought it was really, really inspiring and made research seem really accessible as a kid and fun. And so PFI research was something that I've known about for a long time, and was, I guess, because of that experience, excited to get more involved with. I've mostly done yield and variety trials, and I started collecting research for Susan when I just worked for her before we started the farm transition even. My dad was a biology professor, and so I had a lot of experience taking field notes. This was a pepper variety trial. we did last summer, just comparing different types of peppers. You can kind of see like good peppers and then ones that were seconds or culls, and then kind of the system of how it was set up. And so that was to just see which variety would yield the most, because the goals are for like a long producing, high yielding crop. Because I was doing that, I ended up also settling a long-standing feud between Susan and Laura Krause about which method of seed starting was better. So Susan has long maintained that the soil blocks, which says the soil block machine there, and then that's like what it produces for starts, is better than the plastic trays. And so I had ended up with an extra tray of both the plastic peppers, the same variety, started on the same day. So I did a trial and found that the soil blocks do in fact start producing earlier, they turn red earlier, and they were higher yielding. So I did settle that score, but Laura continues to use the plastic trays. But it was a really good experience to kind of like learn about like how, you know, you might get inspired to do a trial and then, you know, set it up wrong, but have like Liz tell me it's okay. So, and then this year we did a broccoli variety trial to see which kind of broccoli would produce best in summer, so like in July and August, because that's a hard time to grow broccoli. It bolts quickly, can taste bitter. So we tried 3 different varieties, and I think you can tell even from this picture which one did the best. The top imperial just looks a lot better. So that's kind of like a little bit about the research I've participated in, and I found now I'm going to talk about why research is valuable. So I think that I found the on-farm research to be really valuable, not only just because of the specific things I learned, like the soil blocks really are better, or which like variety of broccoli or peppers will work better in my system, but because of the general mindset of like problem solving. And so when faced with like something going wrong and feeling bad about it, it's really helpful to then try and identify what's actually going wrong and think about like, okay, well, next year I could set it up this way to see if this would work better, instead of just panicking, doing a million things and feeling like it was all my fault. And so it's been, yeah, just really helpful. And I think also helpful to figure out how to do that on like a more like daily, regular basis than just setting up, you know, a randomized replicated trial every time. So an example of that has been the way that we sort of like have gradually evolved to the way that we do tomatoes, because of tomato blight being a big challenge that we face. So now we planted on the black plastic mulch with landscape fabric in between with these cages, and it's been really helpful and has just been like a gradual development of trying new things and new varieties. And I also have found that participating in the on-farm research has been really valuable as a beginning farmer, because it's influenced the way that I like set things up, and also I think encouraged me to have a lot of discipline. So I felt really motivated to do a good job with the trial because like other people were doing it too, and so that, you know, helped motivate me to stay on top of the weeds in general in the broccoli field, for example. So it's just really helpful to sort of work that thing into my systems in general. And so I just have some more pictures here for this one, some lettuce. And I put this here because this is some like sort of like informally was trying to see how late I could grow lettuce this year, because I was growing greens for fall. For multiple CSAs, actually. I was doing it for someone else as well. So I wanted to do a good job. So I tried different varieties, and I didn't do a formal trial, but again, sort of like the spirit of experimentation. And this picture was taken like on November 10th, so really late in the season, still doing good. So that was really valuable as well. So yeah, and I think something that I'm really interested in is I found it really valuable to do research as a beginning farmer But it was only possible because of the awesome mentorship that Susan provided me in getting started, and also from having a community of other folks that I could talk to, like at this meeting, but also like call up on the phone when something's going wrong and know that someone will help me troubleshoot and that kind of thing. And so I really encourage folks who are mentoring beginning farmers to continue to do so and talk about their research to get people excited and inspired. So yeah, so thanks, and Nathan.
Thank you very much. I'll need that too. I don't have quite enough hands, so I'm going to draft Wade. I'll just stay right there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm very humbled to be asked to speak and just to be here. It's a great experience every year to come down here. I want to give a few thank yous. My wife Sarah, she made the trip down, taking a day off school tomorrow, so I appreciate that and her support through the years. I really want to thank my parents, Randy and Deb, also, who in this picture were enjoying a much warmer climate, or at least temporary. They've sacrificed a lot to give us the opportunity to farm alongside them and continue to be alongside us each and every day. And also a thank you to my sisters, because if I don't say something, I'm going to hear about it at the holidays coming up. And my little nephew Elijah, who is a blast to have in the combine, and really warns me when the grain tank is getting full that I need to stop. Our farm, it's a picture of my dad and myself from a few years ago also. I believe at that time I was telling Dad to stop smiling for the camera. There's something on this corn plant he needed to look at. Our farm, Bobbling Prairie Farms, is located in Cherokee County in northwest Iowa. Between Aurelia and Cherokee, we raise corn, soybeans, some small grains, hay, cow-calf, and then we finish out some of our own calves for direct market. It's pretty intimidating to look out at this room and see a number of you who have years and years and years of research projects underneath your belt, and have conducted a lot and gained so much knowledge. And for Carmen and myself to be asked to speak, that's pretty intimidating. I feel like we should be out there taking notes, listening to some of you. But I was also cautioned that some of you in the past that have spoken may have strayed a little bit from your notes, and so that's why I have these here. So nevertheless, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. It's really special for me to be at this meeting. This was the first PFI event that I ever went to, was a PFI Cooperators meeting. My sister drugged me along as a college student to come to this meeting. I sat at a table with Ray in the back and Gary, and I think you stayed at the back table. I think that's where I came in too. So they were just so welcoming. I was so thankful for that. I was never before at a farmer meeting that had such a welcoming group of people that was so willing to include somebody, so open about what they had learned, and so willing to share what they had learned, even if they learned it the hard way, which that's really the easiest lesson to remember, is if we learned it the hard way. That meeting laid the foundation for our first research project, which we held in conjunction with a field day that this picture came from. It was a research project about a continuously grazed pasture that we were transitioning to rotational grazing. It taught us a lot of things about grazing, livestock management, ecology, business management, among other things. And it was a great opportunity for us to get some feedback on what we were doing. At this meeting, Steve Reiner, who's pictured just to my right, made a comment about some of the parameters that we had for our research project. He asked, why are we measuring things this way? Why are we measuring daily gain on calves when we're not measuring animal performance per acre? Because per acre gives us a much better metric to determine the success of the project that we were doing. If we hadn't had that feedback, we would have watched our per calf gains decline slightly over the course of the project and think we made the wrong decision. But since we tracked that additional metric, we watched our per acre pounds go up. And that was a very valuable thing for us to have. A brief aside to that, our farm name actually came from a component of our research, because we had bird monitoring, which I see is still being continued by some, which is great. We had bird monitoring as a component of that research. And I saw this bird that I had never seen before with white streaks down the back and kind of a yellowish, whitish cap, and looked like a flying skunk. And I thought that's a great thing to name our farm after. But as we learn more about the bird, we thought that's a great thing that exemplifies what we want our farm to be about. We had talked about farm names that had cedar in them at the same time as we're trying to cut down and destroy all the cedar trees, so it didn't make a lot of sense. But the characteristics of a bobolink, having open space in range and mature grasses that they could nest in, that really fit a lot more with the goals that we wanted to accomplish in our operation. We've also had a couple preliminary projects looking at grazing cover crops before planting soybeans and having a yield evaluation based on different levels of grazing intensity, and currently observing cattle to see if the presence of a cover crop increases their consumption of corn stover in the field. I believe that original project taught us so much about PFI, about the organization, about its members and its staff. I'm amazed at the knowledge that people have shared with us for that project and throughout the years, and just at this event. The number of people that have so much knowledge to share is just incredible. Very impressed by the staff of PFI also. We come up with some crazy ideas in these couple days here, and they do a lot of work to shape those ideas, to write the grant applications that get those crazy ideas funded, and then work with us to have statistically significant project results. This meeting being in the off season of the growing season, and just the PFI culture gives us a great opportunity to think about ideas for the future and what we're curious about, what else we want to learn. And I listed a bunch of these down. There's more, but Stefan said I had a time limit and he's going to cut me off if I went over. So the practical. I'm curious about growing the market for small grains in Iowa. Incorporating a small grain into our rotation, following it with a diverse cover crop mix, give us the opportunity to do many things on our farm. More forage for grazing, fix nitrogen, distribute workload and labor requirements, reduce purchased inputs, build organic matter, build a more diverse and resilient operation. I'm curious about wheat and other small grain varieties' performance in Iowa and the different characteristics that we can have in small grain quality. David, I appreciate the grinning back there, that's great. We want to learn how to better manage many aspects of our cover crop operation too. There's so many questions that we have with our cover crops. More accurate broadcast seeding methods, improvements in cover crops bred for the purpose of being a cover crop, fertility management of corn and soybeans following those cover crops, early and midsummer establishment of cover crops, how to use them more effectively in our livestock operation as well. Never mind. There was one more in there, I thought, but didn't come through. So we're curious how to best rehabilitate grazing lands underneath cedar trees, because we've removed about 12 acres of them in the last few years, and we have a few more to go. I'm curious how long it's going to take to remove them, because a number of you who have conversations with me are probably tired of hearing me talk about them. I know Sarah is. We want to learn how to better manage our corn and soybean production to reduce the off-farm impact of our farming methods. And I'm curious if Stefan was counting those projects, because it might guarantee a few more years of employment at PFI if we are able to look at all those things. I'm also curious about a number of things that we're going to need some help with, and I think a number of you in this room are curious about as well. And again, I have a time limit, and I was told it was not in Tom Franzen or Ron Roseman minutes, it was in regular minutes. So that puts a little bit of a constraint on it. I'm curious about what our farm would look like if it weren't for the influence of PFI. The organization of PFI, the peers that we've met through it, and just the networking events that we have. I'm curious how our farm would look differently if it weren't for the influence of PFI. That is one question I don't really care to find the answer to. I don't really want to research that. I'm curious about transition, land access, who will be able to do the experimenting and the researching. I want to learn how to encourage and support beginning farmers doing research, because our research didn't help to answer all the questions that we had. It helped us find more questions, but it also helped us to ask better questions about the things that we were learning on our farm. I'm wondering how many projects we're going to articulate tomorrow, and how many of those are going to turn into research projects and field days, how many of those field days we'll be able to make it to. I'm curious how you have a 7W farm like the Wilsons with less than 7 people. I wonder who's going to fill the shoes of the farmers that do a lot of the research in PFI and sustainable agriculture in general. I question how big PFI will become, how many people will be here at meetings in the future, how many projects we're going to have 5, 10, 30 years into the future. I question when we'll think less about trying to feed the world and more about trying to feed our neighbor. I'm curious about long-term business planning, excuse me, building a farm that leaves a lasting legacy. My friend Luke Graham asked us when he was up on a farm the other day with a crew cutting down cedar trees. He asked us what success would look like for our farming operation when we were 70 years old. And that's a great question. And I was able to answer a little bit, but I don't have all the answers to it. And I think that's something that all of us could consider. I think that would be really valuable for our future. Maybe some of you can help guide the answers to that in the next few days here. I wonder how we as farmers and friends of farmers can find the answer to these and other big picture questions across the state. And finally, I'm curious how farmers and friends of farmers get every citizen of this state to care deeply about the resources vitally important to them and to us and to our future. For nourishing food, clean air, clean water, diverse and robust ecosystems, and an inquisitive mind that's looking for something to learn. Thank you very much.